The U.S. prosecutor whose investigation led to former President Bill Clinton's impeachment has died. Kenneth Starr was 76 years old. He died at a Houston hospital due to complications from surgery. The former prosecutor investigated President Clinton for a series of political scandals in the 1990s. Well, for more of those stories, let's cross live to Washington and speak to Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham. Good to see you, Eric. Quite a few primaries have taken place over the last day or so. Bring us the highlights.
Yeah, Charles, you're right. We have seen the latest primaries, and these are the final primary elections that will take place before, of course, the all-important midterm elections. In these elections, we have seen Donald Trump aligned candidates do very well. And in the race that you just mentioned in New Hampshire, that perhaps was the biggest race of last night, where Don Bolduc, a Trump-aligned election denier, actually has claimed victory over his challenger. Now, his challenger in the race, Chuck Morris, he actually has already conceded the race, even though there are some outlets who have yet to do so. But now what it appears as though this could be a very difficult pickup overall for Republicans, as they were hoping that the governor of that state, Governor Sununu, would actually run against Maggie Hassan, the Democratic incumbent. And so now what we are seeing here is New Hampshire could actually go the way for Democrats as they may continue to hold this seat, as many saw this as a possible pickup if, in fact, Republicans had been able to recruit their top candidate to actually get into the race. So what we're seeing here now, Charles, is it appears as though the field is set for the midterm elections in November. And now it's just less than 60 days away until we see if, in fact, Democrats can maintain control of their majorities in the House and Senate, or if Republicans have what it takes to actually take control of both chambers. Now, already we have seen massive infighting between Republicans, with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell suggesting that candidate quality is one of the problems facing Republicans as they attempt to try to take back control of the Senate. In addition to that, we have seen a back and forth between the Senate Minority Leader as well as the chair of the Senate Campaign Congressional Committee, Rick Scott, over spending and, of course, the candidates who have been chosen. But make no mistake about it, while the infighting continues to take hold, what we are seeing, at least from all of the candidates that are running so far on the right, these are all Trump-line candidates. 27 election deniers are running in these elections. So again, what we're seeing is undoubtedly this is still Trump's party, win or lose.
Well, that's very interesting because I was going to ask you, what does all this tell us about the upcoming midterm elections? I mean, there seem to be quite a few first-time runners winning primaries. I mean, how are they, though, faring in the polls? Because conventional wisdom seems to suggest that first-time candidates tend to underperform.
And Charles, that's exactly what we're seeing. And it's interesting to note because many of the first-time candidates that we are seeing, particularly in some of these races where we saw open primaries, these were candidates that were hand-selected by the former president, Donald Trump. People like Mehmet Oz, who is running in Pennsylvania, where the polls show him increasingly behind. Blake Masters, another individual who's running in Arizona, who was actually supported by the tech billionaire Peter Thiel in the primary, but has struggled to actually raise money in the general election. In fact, just recently, he scrubbed his website of all mention of his support for abortion rights. For eliminating all abortion. And so what we're seeing now is people like Blake Masters, J.D. Vance in Ohio, Herschel Walker, the former football star in Georgia. Many of these candidates have struggled mightily. They've struggled to raise money. They've struggled to stay on message. And they have also struggled to try to gain a foothold in the polls. But of course, Charles, this is going to be a race where we just don't know if the turnout will have an impact, if Dobbs, the decision to overturn abortion, will have an impact, and what it all means heading into the election.
And just before we go, Eric, we've got less than a minute. Kenneth Starr, the U.S. prosecutor whose investigation led to President Clinton's impeachment, has died. Remind us of who he is and what he did.
Yeah, well, many people remember Kenneth Starr from his time as the special prosecutor in the Whitewater investigation, who also, of course, unveiled the affair between the former President Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Monica Lewinsky, for her part, actually issued some very kind words in the wake of the death of Kenneth Starr. But also, Kenneth Starr went on to have a career outside of that Whitewater investigation. We know he led Baylor University as president, where he was unceremoniously fired for covering up a number of sexual harassment and allegation claims against athletes at the university. And he was seen as a very divisive figure even until the end.
Eric, we're up to date. Thank you very much indeed. Eric Ham, Arise US correspondent, talking to me there from Washington.